The Dark Mirror of Existence, Heidegger and Dasein. Dark is not just a narrative about time travel, but a philosophical laboratory that confronts viewers with the fundamental questions of existence. Characters, especially Jonas, embody Heidegger's concept of Dasein. Dasein is not merely a living being, but one that is aware of its own being and lives with an acute consciousness of mortality and temporality. Dasein, in Heidegger's philosophy, refers to the specific mode of being of the human, a being that questions, reflects, and seeks meaning in its existence, all while living in the shadow of death. As Jonas confronts his younger and older selves, his sense of selfhood begins to unravel. This corresponds to Heidegger's idea of Nicht-zuhause-sein'ı, not being at home. The fragmentation of time leads to the fragmentation of the self. Jonas no longer belongs to his own body, time, or world. Dark thus treats temporality not only as a physical condition, but as an ontological problem. We are as human as our relationship to time allows us to be. Free will and causal determinism. Are we truly choosing? A central question of the series is, are our choices truly ours, or are we merely following a path already laid out by past and future? Behind this question lie two major philosophical problems: deterministic cosmology and free will. Every event in the universe is the necessary result of a prior cause. In a closed temporal loop, actions may be predestined. Quantum indeterminacy suggests that randomness is built into nature itself, potentially opening a space for free will. Characters in Dark often cause greater tragedy by trying to interfere with the past. This recalls the classical Greek notion of hamartia, the tragic flaw. In attempting to avoid their fate, the characters inevitably bring it about. Imagine you're choosing between turning left or right. It feels like your choice, but your past experiences, fears, and desires may have already nudged you strongly in one direction. Dark exposes how often our choices are really conditioned responses. Family trees and ontogenetic determinism, fates written in blood. The series' obsession with family lineage points toward both genetic determinism and transgenerational trauma. The idea that psychological burdens are passed from one generation to the next. Transgenerational trauma refers to the unconscious transmission of unprocessed emotional wounds from one generation to another. In Dark, each character's fate is shaped by the mistakes or actions of a previous generation. This mirrors both the Augustinian concept of original sin and Freud's notion of repetition, compulsion. The drive to reenact unresolved traumas, time travel and empathy, seeing the self in other times. Characters confronting older or younger versions of themselves experience a unique kind of empathy, not with the other, but with the self across time. This is not just psychological, but deeply ontological. Temporal empathy is the capacity to empathize not only with others, but with one's own past or future selves. These confrontations often lead to expanded self-awareness, but also deep alienation, akin to Marx's Entfremdung. Jonas, for instance, becomes alien to himself. His identity is no longer singular, but fragmented across timelines. Desire, repetition, and Lacan. Why do we keep creating our own tragedy? At the heart of the series lies desire as the core human drive. Hannah's obsessive love, Adam's desire to erase pain, Eva's urge to preserve the loop, all reflect various forms of Lacan's objet petit. The unattainable object of desire. Desire arises not from the object itself, but from a structural lack. Even when we obtain what we desire, fulfillment eludes us because desire is fueled by absence, not possession. Thus, the loop in Dark is not only temporal, but libidinal, a cycle of endlessly deferred satisfaction, a structure of perpetual longing. Being toward death, Heidegger and the collapse of narrative time. Heidegger's concept of Sein zum Tode, being toward death, is dramatized literally in Dark. Characters not only face death abstractly, they see it, experience it, sometimes even relive it. Death is the most authentic possibility of Dasein. It cannot be experienced by proxy. It is personal, non-relational, and defines the limits of existence. Time travel disrupts this uniqueness. Death becomes a visible, even manageable event, stripping it of its existential weight. This reflects the modern desensitization to death, where even finality becomes something to control. Adam versus Eva, two paths of existential response. The central tension between Adam and Eva is more than personal. It is philosophical. Adam embodies Schopenhauerian nihilism. Existence is suffering, escape is the only redemption. Eva embraces a Nietzschean affirmation. Even suffering is part of the great eternal cycle and must be affirmed. But the final act, the self-sacrifice of Jonas and Martha, suggests a third way. Transcendence through self-denial, release of desire, and the dissolution of ego. This resonates with Buddhist non-attachment or Hegel's Aufhebung, sublation through negation and preservation. Conclusion: the ontology of time and the fragility of the self. Ultimately, Dark asks, what is time? A line, a loop, or merely an illusion? And further, what is selfhood in relation to time? These are not just sci-fi tropes, but philosophical provocations. The series touches metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, psychoanalysis, and existentialism, making its complexity not a challenge to overcome, but a structure to inhabit.